Good evening, beautiful people.
Good
Or good
morning.
morning. Yeah, or good morning. Whatever. Dang, Dion, come on, we gotta do it
Yeah, you
again.
finesse my lines. What the heck?
No, bro, you're not even tapping it, bro. You're not lock in, twin.
Finessed in my lines. What the heck?
Lock in, twin.
I missed a couple pods, bro. Trying to cut me out.
Yeah, my
Jeez.
bad. I paused for a second. I
Jeez.
paused for a second to bring you in. We might as well keep rolling on this. We rolling. Let's do
Let's
it.
do it.
Welcome to Mose Knows, another episode. Texas versus Florida week, first SEC game of the season. It's kind of weird because Texas is like the last team to have an SEC game. Ole Miss already got 3 underneath their belt, which is kind of crazy. Like the way the schedule is lined up this way.
That was in Texas's favor. That was in Texas's favor.
It low key was.
They needed those games, or Archie
It
needed those
definitely.
games.
No, we're not gonna name names.
Okay, this
We're not gonna
Texas
name
team
names.
could have benefited from playing lower tier opponents.
Oh, there we go. I like that. So you're right, though. They did need that time to kind of get right, especially after Ohio State. The offense was looking kind of shaky. We didn't know what Arch was at that point after Ohio State. These last couple of weeks had kind of allowed us to get a little bit more insight. But this weekend in the swamp, going to be in the rain, by the way, is going to tell us a lot more about not only Arch, but with this Texas team in general. Don't forget, anyone out there listening, first off, if you are listening, thank you so much. I got to thank y'all for just listening in, tuning in to Mose Knows. Really appreciate the likes, really appreciate the comments, the shares on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, whatever you're doing it on. I want to thank you for being here because you don't have to listen to this. You don't have to take your time out your day to do so. So thank you so much. But like I mentioned earlier, though, in the swamp, going to be in the rain. And last year, when Florida came to DKR and played Texas, they rushed for over 200 yards against this defense. And so we're going to find out how good this defense is as well in SEC play because they're coming off of a shutout, which, of course, is against Sam Houston. But can they right the wrongs from last year and slow down this Florida run game, who will probably have to run it because of the downpour that's expected to come on Saturday with this hurricane circling around the state of Florida? So, yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how the offensive game plans kind of get formulated. Will Arch throw the ball a lot? Will it be a lot of quarterback power runs, maybe? I know Sark did kind of hint at that the last couple of weeks of using Arch more in the run game. And what a perfect way to do it in a downpour. So, yeah, think about the other side of the ball, though. DJ Lagway hadn't been playing great, to be honest.
Yeah, who would have thought this would be what is this, week 6, week 5 matchup?
Yeah.
2 quarterbacks still trying to figure it out.
Still
trying to figure it out.
We got to understand, though, they're still young. At the end of the day, these are young guys that had a lot of expectations coming into the season. And actually, Coach Sarkisian talked about those expectations and how people around the media, people around the sports world have kind of hindered development of a lot of these college quarterbacks because of the expectations of how good they should be at this point in their careers. And Sark just thinks it's kind of unfair.
Hey, Steve. Obviously, 2 really talented and relatively inexperienced quarterbacks with Arch and DJ Lagway this weekend. I'm just curious, for when it comes to building up guys like them, having worked with so many, what are the key internal components that you try to put in place to help them succeed?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go on a little soapbox here, David, then I'm going to get back to that answer. I think one thing that came out of this weekend as well, and I'm looking around the country at the high-profile players, I don't know if any of them are living up to what everybody said they were supposed to be. But we're in this era right now of everybody's got a phone, so everybody's got Twitter. There's 9,000 podcasts going on. The coverage over college football is more and more intense than it's ever been. And so players are getting put up on these pedestals really quickly in their careers. And I felt like this weekend I could feel some guys pressing, not so different maybe than Arch was pressing early on, to where they feel like they have to live up to, whether it's whatever they're allegedly making through NIL or because this is what the media is saying I'm supposed to be or I'm not being. College football players are getting critiqued and criticized more now than they ever have in the past too. And so this is a different era that we're in. And I think that we've got to do a great job as coaches of, I don't want to say shelter, but we got to protect our guys, and because they're not pros yet. All right, and the majority of them probably will be, of the guys that I'm talking about. But we've got to do a really good job of putting them in the right mental space to where they're still enjoying playing the game of football with their college football teammates. And so to me, that's the point to these guys, and I think that they got to play for the love of the game, because they do love the game. They need to play football and not work football. And I think that that's something we've been working on with Arch, and I'm sure there's a lot of other coaches around the country that are going through similar things in that realm.
Yeah, we're one of those podcasts that he mentioned, but they need to play football and not work football. I think that was the biggest takeaway I got from that quote there from Sark, because you got to have fun out there. And if you're 19, 20, 21-year-old playing football, it's been fun your whole life until this point. And once it's not fun, as we all know, when it comes to the real world, when you get into a workplace, it sucks. Work sucks. And so that whole morale goes down, your energy goes down, and I think your performance goes down when you're not happy in the workplace, or you consider work to be work. You want to have fun with something that you're doing a lot, and all they eat, all they breathe is football. And so if you make it work, you're not going to get the performance or the results you want. And I think that's what we saw from Arch early in this year, and we're also seeing from a lot of different quarterbacks around the nation. What say you, Dion?
Hey, more money, more problems, dog. So, I mean, you can tell that he made a great point that these guys are trying to live up to making allegedly $2 million, $3 million, $4 million. They're trying to sometimes do the big plays instead of the right plays, and it's reflected. But also too, it's also on the media as well, putting guys in Heisman conversations where they haven't done anything just yet to even have a resume to be Heisman favorites, and now you gotta take them out the list and bash them basically to humble them. So yeah, I definitely think it's a double side thing that the media has to try to balance out expectations. Hey, let the guys play a couple games against tough opponents before you start putting them in these high level conversations. And same with the prospects as well. Just play your game and let the game talk.
And that same conversation has been circling around Gainesville lately with DJ Lagway after his performances these last couple of weeks, arguably some of his worst performances in his entire career. To talk about that, though, we brought in Swamp 247, I should say, Graham Hall. We're going over enemy lines like we always do on Mose Knows, talking to the opposing team's coverage and somebody that covers the team that Texas is facing. Of course, Graham, he covers Florida Gators, not just football, but also basketball as well. But he gave a lot of great insight about the team and the state of the team. And man, they got a lot of people on the injury report. Let's just say that. So here's the interview with Graham. All right, beautiful people. We're going over enemy lines with my new friend, Graham Hall from Swamp 247. Graham, you're in the building for the game this weekend. It's going to be a rainy afternoon. You said it's usually raining. Well, not usually raining, but you said you're used to the rain out there in Gainesville, huh?
Yeah, anytime that games aren't canceled for Hurricanes, I'm having a good time. If we can see a game played in the rain, that's better than the alternative. I hate to bring this up and jump into things, but there have been a couple coaches where losing a game because of a hurricane has impacted that tenure. Go back to Jim McElwain. That season he got fired, they lost a game to, I believe, Northern Idaho. And instead of being 4-4 and having something to salvage, they were sitting there at then 3-5 before he got fired. So anytime a game gets played in the rain, just bring a rain jacket. It's worth it.
Now you're talking about coaches getting fired, so I hate to bring this up, but Billy Napier, let's talk about it, right? What is the sentiment right now around Gainesville when it comes to his coaching position?
I think it's in a really precarious place. I mean, and this is nothing new. This has been building for, let's say, 2 years, honestly. Florida went 6-6, 7-5 the first 2 years, and that leads you to sit there and question, what is this going to look like in year 3? And I still think that by the end of year 3 is still a little bit too soon in this day and age with the portal, with NIL. But the level of expectation at Florida, there's so many programs that are looking at Florida and sitting there and saying, when are they going to get back to the Urban Meyer, the Steve Spurrier? And they sit there and say, you should know by year 3 whether a guy is going to be the guy or not. Billy gets that vote of confidence right before the Texas game last year that saves him. But going back to their loss from September a year ago, people were calling for him to be fired. So this has been building up. The frustration is not new. And there are people who believe that he's gotten longer than many people expected, and it feels like that it's a matter of just one more loss potentially before a change has to happen, where you have a fan base who's checked out, that you're not going to win back so many fans, barring an unforeseen turnaround where Florida goes on a run here and still has something to play for, meaning the college football playoff at the end of the season. So I think a lot of fans could see that if Florida loses these next 2 weeks on Saturday against Texas and then having to go a week later to Texas A&M, that if they don't win both or even, either one of those games, that you're talking about a coaching change happening in Gainesville. It's really funny because internally, Billy Napier is highly regarded for everything except the results, the culture building, how he's worked with parents, navigated NIL, how he composes himself. He's rarely a liability when he speaks publicly. He has a lot of things in his favor that maybe are why it's going to be a quote unquote difficult decision, but the results speak for themselves, and people are about ready to stop seeing him based on his personality and start judging him by his wins and losses. And parting of ways could be imminent if they're operating under that mindset.
Yeah, you talked about him being on the hot seat before last year, and I remember it was right before the Texas game, but then they go out and compete against Georgia. And the way that team played against the Bulldogs, it was completely different than what we've seen beforehand. And a big reason for that was because of DJ Lagway, the way he played in that game. Eventually, he did leave the game because of injury. But that was the first sign of like, wow, DJ could be a guy. But we haven't really seen that since that game, in my opinion. And so where is the issues, do you feel like, from DJ Lagway's play this season, and where has he kind of stumbled so far?
I think a lot of it is rust, and a few of the things are mechanical and mental as well. A sophomore quarterback is going to need as much development time as they possibly can get. And at the end of last season, he was still dealing with some shoulder soreness that he had been experiencing back in August. He was limited in fall camp as a freshman as well. Rest did not heal his issue, and then he had to be modified and didn't throw at all during spring camp. Threw about 200 times a week in the summer, but then he gets a calf strain right before fall camp, and he ends up missing at least half of fall camp. Didn't start fully participating and didn't do every single full practice the whole way until 12 days before the season opener on August 18th. So you're talking about a guy right now that has only had 6 weeks of practice in general as a passer in his sophomore season, and the bye week last week was his first full week of 11 on 11 every single day. So a guy who has been battling through injury, has not been able to develop at the rate he has, and due to that shoulder injury, or possibly due to, I hate to attribute it solely to that, possibly due to just needing to mechanically improve, they altered his throwing motion in the offseason to maybe minimize the pain that he was feeling in his shoulder. And he looks like he has not really been confident taking the downfield shots. And some of that also is due to the mental aspects, the reading of the defenses, teams dropping 3 and playing 2 underneath on you, knowing that you're going to have to read the zone defense, which is something that young quarterbacks struggle with, but it's something that DJ has in particular needed to work on in his game. So there's the mental component as well. And then there's everything you just said. He flashed last year. People were aware of him. He got the preseason Heisman Trophy hype, and he's easier to game plan for. That wasn't the case last year when he was a freshman quarterback and there was limited film on him, and he was more willing to be used as a runner in the open field. Teams are knowing how to play him now. They're knowing how to prepare for him, what he does well and doesn't do well. They're taking away the deep passes. They're dropping, playing vertical defense against him like Miami has done a really good job of. And he is struggling to take advantage of the minimal gaps within the defense. All those things combined have led to the product that we're seeing, which he's coming off his arguably 2 worst performances in his young collegiate career, a 5 interception performance at LSU, and then a dismal 61 yards against Miami right before the bye week. And to Florida's credit, in a sense, even with a quarterback coming out here and having 50 yards at the time, Florida was in a 1-score game, driving in Miami territory, needed a 4th down conversion to get a chance to kick a field goal, make it a 3-point game, and they couldn't take advantage on 4th down. The defense has been good. The offensive line around him is good. He has good players at the skill positions. It's really been, I hate to put the blame solely on one guy, but really it's DJ Lagway's shortcomings, the most important position on the field, that have Florida looking like a team that is struggling to compete, even though the 21 guys around the quarterback have been pretty impressive in my mind.
So is there, with him working on trying to figure this out offensively, is this a game where you feel like the defense is going to have to really step up and, try to slow down this also struggling Texas offense?
Yeah, that's the huge thing for Florida. They're going to have to give Lagway chances to be successful, even if he's not being able to strike from 60 yards out. He can execute drives, but he hasn't been able to string together consecutive ones. Florida has to get him favorable field position, getting takeaways, getting a punt return with Vernell Brown, who's been pretty dynamic this year. They have to do things to put Lagway in a position to be successful. And for Florida's defense to do it this week, it's going to be tough in my mind. They're missing key players in the secondary, on the interior of the defensive line. They have guys banged up at linebacker. They lost a starter for the season, and Dijon Johnson against Miami suffered a torn meniscus. Aaron Gates, who's their starting star nickel cornerback, he's going to be out for the foreseeable future. We reported at Swamp 247 on Tuesday that he had surgery for a torn labrum, which initially Billy Napier thought that they would be able to get that guy back. He described him as day-to-day on Monday, only for him to undergo surgery today, Wednesday. And along with him, they're missing Caleb Banks, who was a projected first-round pick. Mekhi Barrow is practicing again, but how available is he going to be? Brendan Bett suffered an injury. He started against Miami
This
at
list is
defensive
going.
tackle.
This list is.
Yeah, it's tough, man. I mean,
crazy.
I'm making the full case that Florida's defense is extremely banged up right now, but they're going to have guys step up, from Tyreek Sapp to George Gums. Miles Graham has been good at that middle linebacker position, but they're banged up right now. And to do it again for the third consecutive week, lead the way and try and give Florida a chance in the second half, it's going to take a group of guys who are second, if not third string, and inexperienced guys coming into the season.
Yeah, with the rain and these offenses struggling, this may be an ugly game. I'm not gonna lie to you. It may be tough to watch.
You got to run Jaden Baugh 200 yards. I mean, that's kind of what we were talking about. But Billy Napier historically has been a run first coach. He uses 12 personnel, gets an extra blocker on the field, allows guys to lead the way. We haven't seen Florida run the ball at the rate and at the frequency that many people were expecting. I think they're averaging a run about every 43% plays, and there's probably some RPO stuff in there that maybe would change the coaching intentions of those decisions and how much a guy is audibling out and calling a run play or switching to a pass play. There's probably some aspects of that in there, but we haven't seen Florida, knowing that their quarterback is struggling right now. You would think that they would lean on the run at a higher rate. So maybe the rain is going to be the catalyst that makes that happen, but it can't just be Jaden Baugh. They're going to have to find a way to execute in another fashion and open up the passing game against a really, really good Texas defense.
Yeah, we just listened to that dissertation of that injury report. But you are getting somebody, the Gators are getting at least a wide receiver back, from what I'm understanding, correct?
Yep, Dallas Wilson, who was the standout for Florida in the spring, he had 10 catches for 195 yards and 2 touchdowns in his 4th month on campus as a true freshman. Just looked absolutely dynamic. He suffered a foot injury in fall camp, was put into a walking boot, but he was so motivated to get out there and practice that he was taking the walking boot out behind closed doors, and they ended up putting him in a cast. And there was hope he'd be back by LSU. Then it became still some work to do to make sure he was fully healthy, and didn't start fully practicing for the first time in 6 weeks until last Tuesday. So the expectation is he's going to make his season debut. Could that be another weapon for Florida to create that dynamic passing game? That's what a lot of Florida fans and Florida's coaching staff are optimistic can aid DJ Lagway's attempt to be successful and be more explosive. I think that there's bigger problems than simply just getting a guy like Dallas Wilson, a true freshman, back to come and be your savior. But it is another promising piece for Florida to have at its disposal.
So this sounds like this is going to be a game where all 3 phases are going to have to chip in every phase, and it doesn't seem like no phase is going to be able to outshine the other. Is there any predictions of maybe anybody else we should be looking out for? I guess offensively as well.
Yeah, guys are banged up, bruised up all the time. Vernell Brown has been so good for Florida, but he's been dealing with a very minor injury, has been limited at times in practice. He's, from what I understand, going to give it a go. But he has been arguably their most impressive wide receiver thus far this season. He had that one-handed catch that everyone saw against Long Island or against USF, whatever the season runs together at this point, man. I'm seeing too much football at this point. I expect him to be ready. But outside of Jaden Baugh and Jacoby Jackson, he has a fantastic story. A guy out of Pensacola that had to go JUCO, had one of those recruitments that was negatively impacted, like a lot were during the pandemic, and goes JUCO and comes to Florida. He's out of shape and then comes in and beats out several scholarship running backs, and now has been a really dynamic number 2 rusher for Florida. You know, teams are always going to take that by committee approach. Jacoby Jackson has been part of that 1-2 punch for Florida. He had Florida's longest offensive play against Miami. He had a 30-yard rush when Florida couldn't get really anything going. He's going to be a weapon in this game, absolutely. Florida's going to throw to Hayden Hansen a lot at tight end. I would be surprised if he doesn't get 7-8 targets a game. A Texas native who has kind of relished the opportunity to play Texas or Texas A&M because he was overlooked by them. He was a quarterback in high school, and now he comes in and has been a really good tight end. So those are the main feature weapons for Florida. The other interesting one maybe we should note is J. Michael Sturdivant, a guy who transferred from UCLA, was really good at Cal first 2 seasons before he went to UCLA. He got knocked out pretty much against Miami. I think it looked like he suffered a concussion. I don't want to say with certainty here. I do believe he is back and practicing, but could be one that is worth monitoring when we get that availability report that comes out here Wednesday nights after coaches are done speaking, so they don't have to comment on anything in particular. Pretty good design.
Pretty convenient.
Yeah. Funny how that worked out, right?
Yeah, Sarkisian kind of did the same thing on Monday today. We asked him about, of course, Quintravion Wisener, because, you know, he hadn't played since Ohio State. And so the first question was, hey, is Trey going to play this week, or what's the availability? He's like, oh, you know, we got the availability report on Wednesday. Look out.
And they all want to work in the NFL, where I'm sure coaches, there's a part of them that doesn't want to have to talk about it, because then they can just say, you guys have been told what it is. You told whether they practice or not. You get it every single day. That probably would take a lot off their plate. But at the same time, if they want to coach at that level, they have to know that every tidbit of information about a player has to be readily available and frequently updated, or else their organization is getting fined. And I get that you're protecting players, and we're still talking about kids. Like, I know they're 18 to 22-year-olds, and people will say, well, they're adults. They can handle it. They're getting paid. They're still kids.
I hate that excuse, by the way.
And I get it. It's just, it lacks a little bit of compassion in my mind.
Exactly.
And
empathy.
Like, put yourself
a little bit.
You know, like, I mean, not to get too personal, man. I had kidney stones.
You can do it. Okay.
For a little time in college, and I would hate when I was showing up to my job if they were like, "Yo, Graham's dealing with kidney stones, lower body injury." Like, if my information was out there while I was doing my job, just because it's so public, I don't know. I'm not. Anyway. But at the same time,
I would say this though, Graham, before you go on, because Graham, I just want to touch on that point, because Texas fans, they kind of experienced that a couple years ago. Xavier Worthy in his freshman year, he broke his hand, and that never was reported. Sark never released that information. He's dropping passes, and people are flaming X on social media, in his DMs, death threats, and it's like, you could have saved Xavier if you would have mentioned he has a broken hand.
I'm
that's
very glad you said this. Because I didn't mean to cut you off, but I'm very glad you said this, because I've sought out, for the first time in my last 2 years of my journalism career, I've felt more conflicted and like as if it was an obligation to publish that information. And let's just cut to the real of it.
Do it, bro. Mose knows. Let's do it.
But with NIL and with revenue sharing, and at the same time with social media, where if a kid is injured and no one knows why and he's underperforming, there's going to be a Gator fan 12121 that hops online and is like, you suck. You blew my parlay. They're going to find them on Facebook. They're going to DM their moms. And you are protecting them, in a way, from a lot of that, and getting the compassion for them. If people can see, oh, he's fighting through injury. In this day and age, there's so many fans out there that already are going to see players and not be emotionally invested in them. But if they see someone even that transfers in and is fighting through an injury, is dealing with if they're playing at corner and they have a club cast on, they're going to sit here and say, hey, they're still playing for my school. This guy's a warrior. He's not opting out at 1-3. He's not shutting it down. You hop on my Twitter right now. When I'm reporting any surgery, people are sitting here and saying that the kid is having surgery because they're opting out on a difficult season. Like that, and that, like, calling them quitters, which if you're a competitor,
yeah, you gotta hate that.
That's you're slandering me in a sense here. You're gonna want me to, you're trying to get me to defend myself here. And so much of that, it's conflicting. And then I brought up parlay, but the gambling thing of it involved. There are fans out there who are putting their hard-earned money on spreads, and you can go on
let's say it, or 19, 20, 21-year-olds.
Yeah, and you can go on like Sleeper and stuff, and you can pick prop bets for Jaden Baugh and DJ Lagway, and it's conflicting because, like, when they say if you're gambling, you should have as much information readily available as possible to make an informed bet. And then you bring in, man, this is a whole nother topic, but you bring in this economy where gambling is so easy and times are tough.
Mm-hmm.
You feel kind of a little bit of a moral conflict in a sense to feel like that information should be out there. And I don't blame coaches, especially a program like Florida that maybe needs every competitive advantage it can get, where keeping some guy missing the game out of the public eye until 90 minutes before the game, that makes sense for you in a way. And they're playing for their jobs and coaching for the jobs. So I understand it. It's conflicting. Absolutely.
It's a tough conversation, but I'm glad we're having it, though.
Lots of variables.
It's and because we've been putting as much information out there, a lot of fans now believe that Florida is more injured than other teams. And I agree with the coaches when they say, well, it's just because of how much is being publicized, because of what we're putting on the availability report. And not every program does the availability report the same way. I don't know if someone should write a story on that,
Yeah, how much information, who's all... Sark loves the questionable.
Yeah.
Well, I want to say Sark, because Sark was very open about being not involved with injury reports, all about the medical staff. So the medical staff is very questionable. Not like a doubtful. It's always questionable. So it's like, okay, that could mean anything. We see questionable on the fantasy football thing every week, like... I don't know, like, who's going to play, who's not going to play. So, I wish more transparency.
You're unlikely. But you see so many guys, they don't practice on a Wednesday. They're questionable on your fantasy football team. And then it's 30 minutes, 90 minutes before kickoff. It's like, oh, yeah, he's fine. He's going to give it a go. And he gets 100 yards rushing.
I mean, Jaylen Warren's a prime example last week, right? Yeah. Overseas. Yeah. Literally less than 24 hours before the game. Yeah. Now he's out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
4:30 in the morning.
And I'm not accusing him in particular, but probably some of them are being like, hey, I'm actually, texting people and saying, hey, I'm playing, that people know, but they're putting that designation out there because questionable is so subjective, right?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
It's a question, but I know the answer to it.
Crazy.
Like doubtful is different because then you're saying unlikely, but questionable, it's like it's a connotation.
I totally agree with you. Man, I got to have you back on the show another time because you're a great Graham. But I did want to ask you just one last thing. I kind of ask everybody this because everyone that we do bring on the show, we ask what happened at the presser on Monday. Anything stick out when you talked to Coach Napier? Because y'all are in the rooms, y'all listened. And so anything in particular kind of tweaked your interest during that presser with Coach Napier?
Yeah, I mean, I'll commend Billy Napier for having a protective view of DJ Lagway and for expressing optimism. Everything we just talked about with injuries, and at this time, it's really easy to be pessimistic at Florida. And Billy Napier continues to be DJ Lagway's biggest supporter, that he understands what he's dealing with. He's not blaming him, even though as the head coach, he's taking as much blame, if not more blame. He could easily be upset, bothered, angry at his quarterback, whatever it is, for him receiving criticism for the way the quarterback is playing. And he continues to defend him. He's been often vague about his injury situation and what has occurred, which has certainly bothered some people because they felt like they were misled at the severity of the setback for the development time for Lagway. But he's stuck by his quarterback, which has continued to be the case. and I'll commend him for that, because I've asked questions about a quarterback change. We've asked questions about giving up play calling. And Napier he hasn't chewed anyone out like Brian Kelly. He hasn't gotten mad like Mike Gundy with the I'm 40.
Yeah.
Hope Mike Gundy comes back and with a little more fire in college football, because he's
Yeah, we need it.
an enigmatic personality. I think he's easy to root for just as an
Yeah.
outsider. And just Napier's continued to be confident in Florida, but he has dismissed questions about giving up play calling, um, about it being as easy of a fix as many people out there believe. And for the first time, kind of what I already noted about Aaron Gates is that he kind of was open about some of the injuries that Florida is dealing with. Even if he ended up being incorrect the next day on Aaron Gates, I commend him for when he needs every competitive advantage that I just mentioned, where he could have all the reason to keep saying, like he has, you'll get the injury availability report on Wednesday. He was more open despite critical questions. So I commend him for that. I know that's not as fascinating as maybe a huge, nugget of information from him on the state of the team. He's continued to maintain since last year that the bye week has been critical for Florida. So he repeated that once again, and we'll see on Saturday if Florida's able to do what they did last year, which after a tough start, after a bye week, they were able to come out and look much better, have the 4-game win streak, and he effectively saved his job. So we're going to find out if he can even salvage this situation here and save his job. It all starts on Saturday.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying about maybe not getting the best little what I'm looking for context there just now, but I think what you just said affirmed what I thought of Billy Napier. I think he's just a good guy. I think he's a good coach. I watched that SEC documentary. If you haven't watched the SEC documentary, if you're listening, please go check that out and watch the episode of Florida and Billy Napier. I gained a lot of respect for him after that episode. I could see why the players played so hard for him. I could see why the fan base likes him when he first got the hire, and I see why the university has kept him around, because he just seems like he galvanizes the team. He's a core to players coach, and the way he just carries himself and the program, to me, is commendable, and especially with the fires that he's been under these last couple of years. And so, yeah, I appreciate everything that Coach Napier's kind of building over there, or has built, but it sucks to see that the results hasn't correlated. And so we'll see, though, like you said, on Saturday after the bye week, what happens. Texas is also coming off a bye week. And so we're all looking over here like, okay, is Arch going to be able to show what he showed against Sam Houston against the SEC opponent? So we all have the same questions with the quarterbacks over here on both sides of the field. So,
yeah, it's pretty crazy, honestly. I mean, maybe people will reflect a little bit next year on proclaiming that a first time real starter in this still post-COVID era, NIL era, to stop putting these unrealistic expectations so much on these quarterbacks. I know, the Johnny Manziels and the Tim Tebows are few and far between. In this era of college football, if you come out as a sophomore and you kill it when you've started less than 10 games, you're much better than people give you credit for. And it's funny that these two quarterbacks who are probably going to play 15 more years at the next level and continue to get better every single year. And they could be like a guy like Geno Smith, where people still at 23, 24 have questions. And at 28, 29, you come out and you're one of the most productive quarterbacks in the NFL. We're talking about guys who are 19, 20 years old, and they're still, in a sense, not even scratching the surface of their potential. And they're so under the microscope. People said that they were going to be Heisman Trophy contenders. And the Manning name obviously carries its own weight of expectation. So it's going to be fascinating to see. And before I get out of here, I just got to say that point on Billy Napier. I agree with you completely on how well liked he is. There are so many things that people don't see, how cordial he is, well liked by families. He's not just recruiting to land a player. He's identifying family and character, and he's much more well liked by parents of current players than the previous regimes were. And I don't know how much weight that carries when everyone is so win-loss driven and is going to judge you by that 20-22 record. Two things I'll say on that. It does matter. And to use a coach speak here, I would love for the game to be more transformational than transactional, where it's about people so much as NIL, dollars, wins and losses sometimes. That's why journalists get into this, not to write a gamer on the game itself, but to tell stories about athletes. And that's what really matters. That's why people get into this people business, is the people, and it has to carry some type of weight for coaches like Napier and other good coaches. There's so many out there that are actually really, really good people. And that's what makes covering someone's potential, let's be quite honest, impending firing so difficult, is that it's happening to a good person who's done a lot for veterans, for the medical community, for players, and is just a genuine good guy by all accounts. So that's the situation. You're having a good guy who is potentially coaching one of his last games at Florida, unless they can get a win here on Saturday and probably again the following Saturday in College Station.
I totally agree with all that, man. I feel like we kind of experienced the same thing with Rodney Terry last year. You know, Terry was on the high. We knew he was gone. You know, like unless he made it to the Elite Eight or the Final Four, he was cooked. But like when you talk to Terry off camera, man, he's just a good dude, and he cares about the players. And you could see it in the Elite Eight run. Dudes were crying at the podium after the season ended to hopefully not save his job, but get him hired as a full-time coach. No, he was only the interim during that Elite Eight run. And Timmy Allen and Jabari Rice, they were all crying after they lost, saying, please give this man the job. And I think that says a lot when the players are fighting for you like that on a national scale. And so, yeah, it sucks that sometimes it's all about wins and losses when it comes to these head coaches. But people out there are probably listening, are probably saying, well, they're getting paid millions of dollars. So that's what they signed up for, which I'm just like, whoop-de-doo. Okay, cool. like, all right. I guess we don't have any empathy out there, but it's whatever. But Graham, thank you so much for coming on, dog. I can't wait to meet you and actually shake your hand in person in Gainesville. And we'll see how this game goes on Saturday.
Let's do it, man. Looking forward to linking up. I appreciate you guys having me, man. We're going to have to do this again sometime soon for sure. Hopefully we can talk some Florida-Texas basketball this year as well, because
reigning national champs. Yeah, bro.
Hey, that was a bucket list item, being out there in San Antonio. I got to go to all the NCAA tournament games and be out there on the court. Took some confetti home in a bag. It was cool. It was cool.
That's dope.
I've got one of Walter Clayton's national championship cutting down the ring trophies.
Yeah.
But no offense to Walt, I didn't buy it because of him. I bought it because in the background you can see the corner of my hair, and I've been telling people I got my first ever trading card. So. Man, yeah, bucket list experience.
Wow. I love that, Graham. Hey, where can people find your work, bro?
Swamp 247. I really appreciate you guys having me on. That's where you can find all our work. We do a podcast before each game, do our predictions, feature content. I'm also covering basketball, so that's ramping up right now. It's an exciting time in Gainesville. So check it out over at swamp247.com. You can follow me on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, at Graham Hall. And Corey, Dion, it's been an awesome time, man. We got to do it again soon for sure.
I appreciate Graham for hopping on again. Like, he gave so much information.
Amazing.
Especially with that injury report, huh, Dion?
Yeah, I love to see. There's a lot to take from this conversation. But I think the laundry list of names. I mean, geez, they're gonna have to do like TCU did. The women's basketball team. I probably have to hold some tryouts because. Everybody, it seems like everybody at every level, is
every position,
up. Like, oh my goodness, Corey,
we cut him off low key. Like,
he
had more to say.
He was gonna get to the water boys, the athletic trainer, like, and again, like you said, like you were saying, Corey, you got to feel bad for the coach because either way, you got to still find a way to produce. You still
fans don't care,
no matter what. The fans don't care. The betting places, they don't care. Your record doesn't matter. There's not gonna be any context in a couple years of, dang, he had a terrible record. It's just gonna be, and he gonna say, dang, bro, hey, everybody was hurt.
Everybody hurt, and my quarterback is playing horribly. So what you want me to do, bro? Like, what you want me to do? I'm a good guy. Mm-hmm. I'm a good guy, at least. I'm bringing people. And I thought that was a good point by Graham as well. It's just like the families of the players love Coach Napier. And I think that means a lot when it comes to building relationships, building a culture. You don't hear that a lot when it comes to different aspects about what makes a coach great. But if you're able to, especially in these times.
LIL times, no.
And, if I'm being real, right? A white head coach connecting with a lot of black players from Florida. And we all know how them Florida boys are.
Our jits.
They
Jits out there.
they different out there, bro. They different. So the fact that he's able to connect with those type of players, I think that said a lot about him as well. And going back to that Rodney Terry situation, I wanted to share the story about good guys. Someone told me a story the other day. I believe it's Terry Middleton. Shout out Terry from Horns News, and he said that there's a lady who goes to all the men's basketball games. Right? She's in a wheelchair, can't walk, and Rodney Terry saw her one day coming out the garage. The flip. It was flip. My apologies. It was flip. She saw Rodney Terry, and she's like, "Hey, Coach Terry." He comes, walks over, and she's like, "Hey, I come to all the games. Would love watching y'all play and everything." And she's like, "Can I get your address? I would love to send you a gift." And so Rodney Terry gave him the coach's office, and she sent him like a cake, right, saying like, "Good luck on the season." And in return, Rodney Terry bought her season tickets for the rest of the year. And so, like, that's the type of guy RT was, in exchange for a cake, you get season tickets. And he just wanted to show love to all the people on the 40 acres. And, again, it goes back to wins and losses means a lot when it comes to different fan bases, especially when the fan bases are University of Texas and the University of Florida, because they're known to win. And that's all they know. And so when it comes to these type of coaches that have these expectations to win, and it doesn't really matter about how you develop players, how you build men, do you win on the floor or do you win on the field? And honestly, I hate that. I hate that sometimes, especially when the string has only been 2 years or 3 years. Rodney Terry only got 2 years. And so, yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult sometimes when you have to report on it, when you have to ask these guys questions, because the other variables. Same thing with UT last year basketball. A lot of injuries, but it doesn't matter. It only matters if you win or lose. So just got to get on that soapbox right there. But other than that, though, any other thing you want to talk about before we get out of here?
Shout out to Nafisa Collier.
Oh, bro. Oh, my gosh.
Shout out to her. Man, this has been an interesting summer for the WNBA. A lot of great storylines. I recommend, if you're not a fan, please become a fan.
Please,
there is
bro.
a lot.
There's so much drama in the W, bro.
It's just like the NBA. I promise. There is so much drama. You have the stud buds. You have the Caitlin Clark. You have the black versus white aspect of it. The playoffs have been really good. If you haven't been able to tune in, playoffs have been really good. Asia Wilson, 4-time MVP. I would think Nafisa got snubbed.
Yeah.
I think she should have got it. But, and then you have this player as, I guess her equivalent to the NBA would be Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
Or somewhere in that stratosphere.
One of the greats. One of the greats.
Player in the league, giving her exit interview or exit conversation. And just, man, she just grilled the owner.
The commissioner.
That. The commissioner. Imagine
the commissioner of the league. That's
imagine that.
Like, imagine LeBron going up there and being like, "Yeah, Adam Silver doesn't know how to do his job." That's basically what just happened. And you never see that.
He don't know how to do a job. And Kevin Durant should be grateful.
Yeah,
he should be grateful that he's in the NBA. And we gave him the platform. Yeah, we gave Kevin Durant the platform. So
yeah.
But
Steph Curry wouldn't be a well-known name if it wasn't for the NBA. That's basically what she allegedly said about Caitlin Clark. And by the way, speaking about Caitlin, where is she? Anybody know where Caitlin Clark is at in this whole conversation? Please, Caitlin, say something. Be in support. It pisses me off. She has such a big voice.
That's not her brand, bro, unfortunately.
I don't care what her brand is, bro. Say something. At least say, like, I appreciate Nafisa for being so strong and brave for going out there in front of me and saying that. That's all she got to say. She had to say she's in support of Fee. She got to come out and just say, I appreciate Fee for saying that. That's all. I'm not asking you to take a stance. Just say something. But I understand. PR move. Stay silent. You got your bread. Don't mess it up.
She needs to be grateful, bro. What you want her to do? She needs to be grateful.
Bro, I'm grateful for you, bro. I'm grateful for the listeners for this pod.
Crazy.
I'm grateful for people that tuned in on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music. Doesn't matter. Please subscribe. Please like. Please comment. Share on all the platforms. We appreciate everybody that's listening on the Mose Knows. But man, what an episode. Thank you, Graham, for hopping on again for another great episode of Mose Knows. We'll see what happens this weekend. Texas versus Florida, 2:30 kickoff. Will Arch show up in the rain? Will it be a run type style game? Quintravion Wisener, CJ Baxter. It's a coming home party for CJ. I hope he's able to play. We are recording this before the availability comes out, so we don't know if CJ will play or not. It seems like Quintravion will, but don't know about CJ. I hope he does, though. A Florida kid going back home. I hope he gets the opportunity to play in front of his family. But with that being said, let's get out of here, Dion.
Yeah.
Yeah.